and welcome once again to our SonRise Project Sunday Call. So delighted that we are all here this morning together in a safe space that's filled with love and compassion and our mutual desire to heal ourselves and our families. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That serenity prayer really does ground me every single day. I am so delighted this morning to welcome back Dr. Julie Lopez with us. She has been with us several times, and she is an incredible speaker, master clinician, and the founder of Viva Partnership, which is a mental health organization dedicated to sparking a mental health revolution. We're going to hear more about that in a moment. Dr. Julie's mission is to help build stronger leaders and organizations by empowering them with mental health truths that help them reach greater levels of performance excellence. When leaders understand and implement the power of mental health in their companies, everyone thrives. Making the invisible visible is part of that mission. And we talked about that earlier, and I can't wait to jump into that a little bit more this morning. Her core message is that you can thrive in business, love, and life. And that message has moved her audiences to realize their ultimate potential, despite the roadblocks that obstruct their greatest level of performance. By leveraging brain science, Dr. Julie loves to illuminate hidden paths to increased excellence, empowering her audience talk by talk and speech by speech. As a human systems expert with a niche in performance enhancement, Dr. Julie works with individuals, teams, and organizations to feel empowered within their professional, personal, and relational realms. Her clinical specialty is working with implicit memory, which is hidden cellular memories, by utilizing advanced brain-based therapies, including EMDR, brain spotting, and neurofeedback. After beginning her career as a systems engineer, she quickly gained an interest in viewing the human body as a system, specifically how humans store and deal with trauma in the body and the compulsions that often develop to cope and adapt to trauma. And many of those things we're going to talk about today because many of us are dealing with those issues. She has a book called Live Empowered: How to Rewire Your Brain's Implicit Memory to Thrive in Business and Life. And she has a free ebook entitled Everything You Need to Know About Trauma, all available at her website, which is vivapartnership.com. She also has all kinds of free online mental health workshops and workbooks, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. And what I want to share about us this morning is that, and let me just say this, Dr. Julie and I met through our swim world. She and I are fellow swim moms, and I had no idea how incredible she was in this space until SonRise Project started, which has been almost 4 years. And we started talking and opening up about, I started sharing my issues and challenges with my family. And Dr. Julie said, oh, and so we became fast friends. And so in addition to her tremendous resume, I'm so proud and honored to call her a friend. She lives in the DMV area, or the DC metro area, with her husband, 4 children, and 2 dogs named Santa and Bailey. And this morning, Dr. Julie is going to help us learn about the normal and natural ways our teens may try to cope and survive, whether that's with drugs, alcohol, isolation, self-injury, or other means, and why these are actually signs of resilience, which I can't wait to hear about. She's going to lead us in a powerful discussion while exploring other alternatives that can potentially offer grounding to parents and to our teens or young adults. So with that, Dr. Julie, thank you so much for being back. I am so grateful for you and can't wait to hear about this topic of being overwhelmed, overwhelm in our teens and overwhelm in our own selves. So welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me, Kelly, and for all your kind words. It has been a long journey of friendship with you since I was kind of thinking back on this. I think it's been 10 or 15 years with our kiddos, kind of growing up in this swim world. And yeah, it's also, I'm just so grateful to you. I'm sure people participating and learning from what you've put together. You have been steady. You have been consistent with your vision to help parents and thereby help their teens as they grow into young adulthood with stuff that a lot of people don't talk about. And I just admire you for that, for your vision and then the consistency. I don't think you've missed a week. And because we wake up at these crazy hours, these swim parents, if you haven't heard, it's just really, it's the 4:30 for me every morning. And so I remember you started out the calls at 7 a.m., which we were like, oh, that's fine. We're just sitting in the parking lot
At
anyway.
sunrise.
Yeah, doing the sunrise calls. And then, I know you started expanding your participants and then having it a little later so people from the West Coast could actually pop in, or people across the country was important. So I love it. I think it's been great. And just a little backdrop, when Kelli asked me again, it's been great. I don't know how many times I've been on, but it's been over the 4 years for sure. And Kelli just said, hey, what are you seeing right now? Because I work, my organization works day to day, every day with mental health. I said, I'm going to be honest, right now, we're just seeing such a rise in people looking for support for their teens. And we're primarily an adult practice, usually like young adult and up, but maybe like 16 and up. So we're not heavily focused on the teenage population, but see a lot of parents dealing with their teens. And we've just had an overwhelming amount of referrals for working with teenagers. People know the kind of work that we do. And I'm going to tell you from the front lines, it looks like it's really a lot of complicating factors that are coming out of what happened in the pandemic. So it's all the stuff that was already there, right? The struggles that teenagers normally always struggle with, which is they're trying to figure out who they are independently, like their own kind of self-identity separate from family and parents. That's just a normal part of the developmental process when you hit adolescence, right? It's all the stuff, while hormones are hitting, it's the kind of, separation in a way, kind of the natural movement towards independence. And that, coupled with a lot of hidden factors, societal factors, there's a lot of violence in our world. There was a lot of loss during the pandemic at a time when teens usually are looking to peers. Social connections become much more important during adolescence, and a lot of that was taken away very quickly, all of a sudden, and there was just a lot of loss, emotional, societal, relationship loss, suicide rates went up, and we're seeing not only a request for a lot of work with teens, but teens coming out of residential treatment, intensive outpatient programs, partial hospitalization programs. So that's been, I would probably say, the last 3 months or so. So that's where the topic came from and was inspired by. And Kelli, I know when we spoke, you were very interested in making sure that people here understood what it meant when I said we're invested in a mental health revolution. And this is the revolution. Traditional talk therapy that is only talk-based doesn't work. It works to scratch an itch and to understand a little bit more on an intellectual frontal lobe of our brain, way of understanding. But for substantive shifts in our nervous system, in our body, which then in turn feeds behavior, we have to look beyond talk to actually have our system understand what we're going to say. And that's very important for the topic today. That is the simplest way I can put it. That is the revolution. It's for lay people, for everyday people, for regular people to understand that there are a lot of non-talk related therapeutic approaches. There are a lot of non-talk activities that we can do that can profoundly shift the way our body understands our place in the world. And that is huge. And some of those are very expensive, very sophisticated types of therapeutic approaches, and some are things you can access like right now, in this moment, in your day, that can profoundly change what's happening inside our bodies. Because yeah, and that's a huge topic. I told Kelli, I was like, how much time do I have? Because I do talks that are 30 minutes for sure. I know that's kind of what today is going to look like, but I talk for 3 hours, 5 hours, 8 hours, multiple days at conferences on the topic of implicit memory and how to really start to see and hear things that you can't normally quote unquote see and hear if you're just using the frontal lobe of your brain. And I'm going to introduce you to that a little bit today, specifically as it relates to overwhelm. So I hope I answered that question for
You
you, Kelli,
did.
about the revolution. Yeah.
You did. Thank you.
Yeah.
I
No
appreciate it.
problem. Yeah. No problem. So here's the deal. When we talk about teen overwhelm, if you're an engaged parent and you're paying attention and you're in a relationship with your teen, which I know everyone on this call for sure is, and that can take different forms, then you are also going to be experiencing overwhelm in yourself. So I'm going to touch on both of those. And then we're going to do a few experiential things where you can actually see and feel the power of non-talk related interventions. And I'm going to give you some tools so that you have some takeaways later and can keep on studying and learning about the types of things that I'm going to talk about. So first of all, there's a few very important tenets to what I'm going to share. 3 to be exact. The first one is our human system is incredible. It is wise, it is loyal, and it is always aimed towards helping our individual, every single person has one of this, reach our highest potential as it understands the world. That is very important. We all have that. People who feel broken, feel worthless, feel beaten down by life and the experiences that they have had, they still have it. They still have it. So that is the first thing. Our bodies are amazing. The second thing is that there are invisible factors. There are invisible factors that influence systems, our nervous system, and then our behavior. So it influences our system, which shows up in terms of symptoms and things like, oh my gosh, my heart's beating so fast, my throat is constricting, my palms are sweating. There are things you will see, I'm feeling anxious, overwhelmed, this kind of thing, and it will influence our behaviors. These invisible factors are super, super, super important. I'm going to talk a little bit about what those are, but then why they're there. There's a scientific reason. This morning, everything's just a high-level overview because we don't have enough time to get into it. But trust me, there's a lot to it. They're very complicated. And the third thing, and this is, if you take away nothing else, I hope you hold on to this one, is that when we speak the right language, we get the right results. So when you speak the right language, you get the right results. Our bodies have this whole map internally. And when we're just telling ourselves things logically, it's like speaking Chinese to someone who speaks Spanish. It's not going to work. So when you have the ability to decode what you're seeing and then speak to that accurately, you greatly increase potential. Like everything goes up. Connections go up, possibility goes up, hope goes up. And this is so critical, right? And this is the disruption we're trying to create. So I'm going to explain all of that to you today. But first, I might share, you have a little background on my friendship with Kelli and her amazing sons, Kyle and Chris, who've grown up with my children, Maya and Lucas. I am sitting in a car today because I have a child swimming in a swim meet today. And I took off my sweatshirt and t-shirt and put on this jacket to be all so fancy for you guys in my car.
Which you didn't have to do,
morning.
by the way. I took off my robe to put on a sweatshirt. Yes.
So just being real about what a Sunday morning looks like sometimes as a swim mom. If we're not at church, we're at the pool.
Yep.
So here I am, and just to tell you a little bit about me, I know she read all that professional stuff. but I was adopted. I was born to a Mexican American young teen. She was sent away. It was very shameful for her family that she got pregnant. She was pregnant because she was date raped by her boyfriend, and it was trauma. It was just a trauma bubble. So that was kind of the beginnings of my conception and my life in utero. And then I was given away by my biological family, and I was in an orphanage for 3 months. And then I was adopted by my very lovely family who raised me. And they were raised up on the list because my father is Mexican American. And so, it was a racial fit. And because I'm very active in the adopted community, both as a leader in trauma, but as an adopted person, I know that my fellow adoptees that are, transracial adoptees have a whole other layer of loss and trauma around not growing up in the same cultural environment that is part of their ancestry. So I just wanted you to know that, because I think it speaks to my very passionate commitment in all areas to my life to fostering transformation and to breathing hope into spaces where visibly it might look and feel hopeless, but that when we become empowered, and empowerment comes from understanding things in a more sophisticated level, like things are, when they're more complex, when you can see things that prior you couldn't see, you actually become more empowered, right? We literally cannot change the things that we're unaware are happening, even if they're happening in that very moment. And so I feel very, very passionately about that. And Kelli, did you want to say something? I know you said this might be
I
conversational
want to just
somewhat. I'm
ask.
happy to do that.
No, I
Yeah.
think that's really, I remember you having a Mexican mom. I remember you sharing that story, but I didn't remember the orphanage. I didn't remember being adopted by, did you say your father, the people that adopted you, was it a
Yes.
white family or?
No.
Okay.
It was my adoptive mother, the mom who adopted me, she's uh, white, white,
Okay.
and then my father, but her family, it was like a tough family, so she kind of like really absorbed his culture, which was Mexican. So
Got it.
home was, and Lopez, that's the name I grew up with. I never changed my name.
Mm-hmm.
So, Spanish was spoken in the home. We listened to music. We ate food. My grandmother didn't really
Yeah.
speak English, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the cultural pieces were there my whole life for my Mexican heritage.
Right. But you knew who your parents were. You met your mother, your biological mother. The reason I'm asking this, I want to hear the
I
answer, but
didn't until I
you
was
both,
in my
oh,
20s,
okay.
but I did meet her. She passed away right before the pandemic, unfortunately.
Oh
But
God.
I'm connected to that whole family, close with my two sisters, and have kept that relationship for the last 30 years.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I only asked the question because Kirk Franklin just came out with a film called Father's Day, and he released it on YouTube. It's a short 30-minute film, which is his story around wanting to meet his father, his birth father. And the person
Yep.
he thought was his father his whole time was not. And he's just, so it's very traumatic. And it can be
Yeah.
traumatic if you
There.
are looking and just don't know the truth. So I don't want to digress on that, but you know the truth, you know who the people are, and you're connected. So that's a blessing. So thank you for
It is a
sharing.
blessing. It
Hmm.
is a blessing, but I mean, don't even get me started. Watch out, Kelli. I said my biggest issue isn't whether I can fill the time; it's that I might like. I have. Well, actually, let me say this before I scare anyone. I'm very disciplined about stopping when I'm told to stop. I always stop on or before the time, so I am not going to go over when I say these types of things. But you start to dip into adoption, relinquishment trauma, late discovery adoptees, all of that around identity, and it's a thing, and our
Hmm.
nervous system responds to it, no matter how nicely it's wrapped up in words or the billion-dollar adoption industry. It is the thing for your nervous system, and
Yeah,
that's what I specialize in, is like these invisible things that when you make the complicated elements more visible, all of a sudden there's options, and
right.
options lead to possibility and lead to growth and healing. And there's a lot there. So, I can talk about that some other time
We'll have
if you
that as
feel like it's
another
relevant.
topic. Yes, a
It's
future
a,
topic.
it's another topic, but I am deeply, deeply committed to transformation in that way. I'm actually working on another book, but I will tell you, just to share, Live Empowered is all about implicit memory. Implicit memory is not a well-known term in regular everyday talk, but it is very empowering to understand it. And in my book, at the end of every chapter, I have statistics, information, a little homage to my fellow adopted people. It's
Mhm.
never longer than a page, but it's in the attempt to have people understand better why adoptees are overrepresented in suicide statistics, overrepresented in residential treatment, overrepresented in addiction recovery work, because there is
Mm.
a lot of loss that goes on when you are disconnected from your people, period. Even if you have the
Right.
most wonderful adoptive family ever, and all that stuff. So whole other topic, but I want to talk about this overwhelm thing. And first I want to talk about coping, and survival, and this
Mm.
idea that I said our human system's brilliant, wise, loyal, and aimed towards our highest potential. When our children experience something, even if they can't put words to it, right? If their system is feeling overwhelmed, it is not only natural, but is adaptive to listen to our bodies, even if all of this is unconscious. So, sometimes when you talk to a teen and you're like, why are you stealing stuff? Why are you stealing stuff? We have plenty of money. I can buy you anything you need. What are you doing? And you're asking a logical question. I always talk about this frontal
Mm.
lobe stuff. And this is the language. This is how we communicate as a society, as a culture, as a communal people. We think and we communicate and we share things. So if you're asking these logical questions, you get a logical answer, which from a lot of our teens is, I don't know. Like, I don't really know.
Mhm.
Like, logically up here, I don't know. When you put it that way, it doesn't seem like a
Mhm.
good choice. And they're like, and you're like, why are you making these bad choices? And they're like, I don't know.
No.
I don't really know. Now that I'm sitting here with my parents looking at me and taking away my privileges and telling me all these things, like, I don't really know. Like, I didn't really think about it at the time. But there's a reason. And I'm gonna, every person's reason is different. And I'm definitely gonna revisit the self-injury thing again, because I know that was a really powerful talk that I did. I don't even know how long ago, how many years ago, or a year ago.
I think it was last June, and it really changed my world.
Was it last June or two
I
Junes
think it
ago?
was maybe it was 2 Junes ago.
it all it all hey,
All
look, I am
blurs.
now fully in menopause, and I went through the pandemic too, and I've got all these people in
Yeah,
my household, and blah blah blah, and I don't remember chronology
great.
anymore. It's like, was
Welcome.
it
Welcome to
last
that.
year, was it 3 years ago? I don't know. So but what might actually be happening, and let's say you line up 5 kids who are stealing, and you don't know why, and it doesn't seem logical, and each person's reason could be different. So this is just an example. I could give you a different example, different reason. So we're talking about overwhelm today. So let's just say that teenager is just feeling overwhelmed and it's uncomfortable, and they don't really realize it. They're just like agitated and feeling kind of angsty, and stealing is actually an adrenaline pumping activity. So you're doing something wrong. You're doing something illegal. You could get caught. It's just like the video games that anyone can get addicted to. There's like, are you going to get shot? Are you going to shoot someone else? It's all this like very limbic system. Our limbic system is that fight, flight, or freeze type of activity. So maybe they don't know the answer up here in their frontal lobe, but maybe inside they're super stressed because they're a junior in high school, and some kids are going to college and some aren't, and maybe they didn't do well on a test, and maybe like they're an athlete too and they've got to perform a certain way and they're not doing so well, but they don't have great outlets for explaining their feelings, and they're just feeling agitated. And so the hit, the emotional hit of like having an adrenaline surge actually gives their overwhelmed nervous system a much needed exhale. I'm not even going to think about those things. I'm not even going to think about my grades or my sport or my big fight with my good friend that could feel like social suicide, because friends and being accepted and being included is like my number one top priority. I can't even articulate all that. But the stealing isn't about being a bad kid. The stealing is actually about getting some relief. And this is where we get to the body being brilliant. And maybe that's relief. It's exactly what they need in that moment, like a distraction and something that gives them adrenaline so that they're energetically charged about something different just for a moment, right? And that's brilliant. And how do we get to that if the only answer is, I don't know? And how do we get to that if what's going on for us in the invisible is, oh my gosh, I'm like failing as a parent. Oh my gosh, like what am I going to tell my friends? Like my child's on, probation and has a juvenile,
Record.
officer,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, or a record, or like the shame. Like, am I going to be okay? Am I going to be accepted? Like, how do I get control? I feel so out of control. Like, how do I prop my child up? And how do I do their schooling for them? How do I, take over, whatever, all these things. I just very, very quickly ran through a whole bunch of coping mechanisms as a parent that might be normal, that could be happening. So if your go-to is to enable, then maybe you're going to start enabling. Maybe you're going to start looking at all the syllabus for every class and like micromanaging every moment. And if you're one of those people, you know how that works out with a teenager. It does not go well. So all of a
It
sudden, the
never
teenager,
works out that well.
it does not work out.
The
You are anxious because
micromanagement. Mm-mm.
you feel out of control. You go for control. Guess what? If you feel out of control and that doesn't feel good and you're going for control, instinctively, that's your body taking care of you. And I know what you may be doing is disruptive, but if you can open up the circuit so that you see all the possibilities, then you start to have choices. I'm going to make it up because I'm just like, here's a good moment to like start to slow it down and to see what's happening. So there's the example, the parents feeling out of control. They start micromanaging. Let's say you take a pause instead of just doing it. You're like, oh, 5 alarm fire, emergency. I'm saying this internal implicit memory, invisible part of your system is saying this is an emergency. So do what you do, run out of the building, jump from the 7th floor, whatever heroic thing you need to do, you got to do it to survive. So instead of just doing it, just starting to micromanage, like, let's just pause and
Mm.
notice what's happening in your body. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Everything's sped up. I went right into action mode. I'm a fighter, and my coping mechanism is to fight. This is a battle, and we're going down, and my baby's going down, and I am fighting. I am fierce, and I am in there. I am taking control. Like, car is gone, social is gone, you're punished forever. I'm managing your school. Whatever it is. I don't know what it is. Get really radical. You take away the phone. You're going to treatment. Keep on going. Like, it's a fight. Okay, so we're going to pause. What is happening in my body, right? Where is this coming from? My body wants to survive. I need to feel some sense of control. I've been listening to SonRise. I've been doing my SonRise Sundays. I remember other friends, stories, my new friends on this network that we've created telling me micromanaging is not the answer. Let me tell you what happened with my child when I started micromanaging. Oh my gosh, girl, I hear you. And that itch feels like I want to scratch it. I would love to just clamp down and turn it back to when my little boy, little girl was 6 years old, when I managed all the things and everything was cool because it lived in this little box. But you know, my friends who see me they've told me their horror stories, and they've said this is not a good path for my mental health or for my child. What are my other options here? Because I feel so out of control. But
Mm-hmm.
we know our bodies are brilliant. We need to feel control. So what is that? Where can we feel that? What can we control? Kelli opens up every time with the serenity prayer. What do I let go of that's out of my control? My child's a teenager. Developmentally, they're supposed to be developing their sense of autonomy, their own agency. Like, I love them so much, it hurts. Like, it's scary to think about being out of control. So what can I control? You know what I can control? I can control my own drinking. I can control my own anger. I can control my own, I can do my own work on my childhood wounds, the things that made me jump towards fighting, right? Like, I can take a pause. I can take care of myself. I can
Mhm.
respect that that need for control is a good need. It comes out of
Mhm.
something in my life, and that there are things that are going to make me feel, oh, so much better. And that's a very fast, very simplified example of slowing down to listen to the invisible. And then the language I mentioned, like when you speak the right language, you get the right
Mhm.
result. The best language is language that isn't spoken. So what makes me feel more in control? I'm going to make something up here
Yeah.
because everyone, we are all snowflakes. It is all different. And there may be examples. I don't want to just, I can talk on my own, but if people want to jump in or share stuff, but like maybe feeling in control is I'm going to start doing this exercise program. And it's very
Mhm.
regimented for me. It's for me. I'm going to stay in my own fence. I'm going to stay in my own yard, and I'm gonna well, hold on, we're gonna talk about the teams in a second, but I am going to do something with a coach that's regimented. I'm gonna do something with an app, it's regimented, and I'm gonna do that. And I can write my list and I can check stuff off, and I get what my body needs to feel like, okay, I can't control this, but I can control this. And I need to feel that so that I don't lose it right now, so that I don't go off the deep end, you know? And I'm going to do that on faith because people have been so gracious to be transparent, to tell me about their struggles, to tell me about their journeys. And I'm doing this so that I can try to avoid the very tempting, very seductive pull to micromanage because I have
Mhm.
heard how damaging that can be on my teen at this particular moment in time.
Mhm. Can I
And that's
ask a
the,
specific question around the teens? And so, if you are
yep,
observing, I love how you framed it, by the way, that these potential behaviors, smoking weed, vaping, you know, drinking, all these things that are, we know,
running away,
mhm,
cutting, all
all
the
of
things.
them, all the things are signs of resilience or looking for ways to ease a pain or a trauma that hasn't been dealt with. So, as a
Definitely.
parent, what is the best way if you discover you start smelling
Yep.
weed or you have a suspicion about self injury? What's
Yep.
the best way to approach the conversation or
Yep.
how, or not? Like, how do you,
No, no. Yes, conversation.
yes,
Yes,
conversation.
conversation.
Mhm.
Definitely. Because so the so first of all, transparency is always best. So your engagement is always best, even if it's messed up, even if it's not perfect. You saying so avoidance in general comes for many reasons, and we all
Yes,
do it, parents and teens alike, right? So you deciding to have a conversation, even if it's messy and not in the perfect way, is always better than pretending it's not happening.
right.
Than deciding you're going to work extra hard or take more travel, business travel, and just put your head in the sand. That is not a great answer, and it's not great modeling for your teens, and it's definitely not great for them. Trust me,
Yeah.
their way out is to like deal with reality. And some of the tools that I think are most effective is to slow it way down and try to uncover what the body is deeply saying, which is comes out of implicit memory. So it's the slow down. So you lead with love. Hey, I'll use my daughter's name, Maya. Hey Maya, I just smelled some weed. I think it's coming from your room. So I want to know what's going on. no, 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 nothing, whatever, whatever. Come on, girl. Like, I'm not born yesterday. I know exactly what it smells like. You and I are the only two people in the house, and the next door neighbors are not close enough for me to smell that from outside. So I need you to come clean with me. No, it's nothing really, mom. Just like leave me
Mhm.
alone, whatever. Okay. So they're communicating a boundary. They may or may not be able to talk about it. Their path is to avoid, and you're not going to go with that. Right. And so you
Right.
don't get into, so the first thing is you lead with love. I'm sorry. First thing is transparency. Second
Transparency.
thing is then you lead with love. Okay. So, and that can be like something about yourself. It can be something about them. So, hey, listen, I I get it. You don't want to talk about it. I don't believe you right now. I know that must mean that you're overwhelmed with something, or this is too much. Mom, I don't want to talk about it. You're really crowding me. Okay, so I hear you giving a boundary. I want to tell you we are going to talk about it. If you don't want to talk about it now, I respect that. But at some point, we're going to talk about it, and I'm not letting us go to bed until we talk about it. So you figure out when and where you want to talk about it, and I will respect that. But until we have this conversation, the world is on hold. Well, wait a second. I have my thing with my girls, later on tonight. Okay, it's on hold. And I get it, but we're on hold because you've now told me there's something really, really important going on in your body, and I'm not going to pretend it's not happening.
Mm.
Oh, you're so difficult. You're ruining my life. All the drama, all the things. It's okay. You
Mhm.
listened to what was said. You listened to the boundary. You communicated what you needed, and you communicated that you're going to take a path of engagement. So it's transparency, love, and engagement. And you're going to engage. And then you're giving them agency. So teenagers, young adults.
Mm.
So they say that this last kind of developmental part of your brain, they used to say it's fully developed by your 18. Later studies have said it's more like 25. So you're in this zone, and that sense of agency and personal autonomy is so important developmentally. So when you can say, hey, we're going to have the talk, but this is how much time I'm going to give you, you choose the way and when, but it's happening. I'm going to give you space now because I heard you asking for it. Great. That's a great thing to think about in terms of actually talking about it. But then
Mhm.
what you do next, and maybe even saying, like, if you're leading with love and you're like, hey, we're going to talk about it, and you may think you're in trouble because you've now done something is not okay with me.
Mhm.
I want you to know that what's more important to me is your well-being. You matter more to me than the punishment or the consequences. And we're going to suspend that until we have a heart to heart around what is really happening. And you leave with that and you let them just sit with that. Like, this is, this person, and
Mm.
maybe it's the person, they're trying to get away from, which teenage years are all about that,
Mhm.
is going to have a heart to heart that puts me as a human first and my suffering and my needs first. And then I'm going to empower you even more because I'm going to tell you how that's going to go. By the way, just keep in mind, I've been doing this work for 30 years. Some of you may be in the mental health space, and this will be helpful. But there's a lot of tools, there's a lot of skills. It is so hard. And I'm going to tell you this is so
Mm.
much harder for me to do with my own children than to
Mhm.
do professionally because I can be triggered. I'm super invested. This is a
Mhm.
very major attachment thing for me. As you already heard, like, my major wound is an attachment wound. So it becomes very messy very fast when it's my own child. So, hey, that's cool.
Mm.
Sometimes these slowed down conversations are better done with a professional because they
Mm.
can manage you as a parent getting triggered. They can manage the the offspring. I'm not going to say child because they're really moving into young adulthood being triggered, and create a container for all this. This is like
Right.
years and years of work, years and years of study. But I'm going to give you the roadmap. I'm going to give you the roadmap. And Kelli, I'm counting on you because I'm in my car holding my phone or
Yes, there is a
here.
question.
So I
I
see
want
some
to just,
chat stuff.
yes,
Yeah,
there's a
yeah.
question, which was my question very similarly, because It was never that easy, although I didn't approach it that way. So if I really put myself in my observer's chair, I did not lead with love. I did not lead with, it was very punitive. But the question is, which obviously resulted in, like it just escalated super quickly. But the question is, how do you respond when they are irrational and it turns into a shouting match, or they are attempting to walk away? Or I would add to that, or they walk away. There were times with Kyle where I'd said, we would be in a heated debate about lead or about whatever, and he would just leave the house
Yeah.
and just
Yeah.
and then come back sometimes hours later, sometimes days later, and would act like nothing ever happened. So the
Yeah.
question specifically is, how do you respond when they are irrational and it turns into a shouting match, which is easy to have happen when you're so upset. You're like,
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
this perfect
totally.
child, I thought, and all of a sudden I don't know who this is.
Yep. So first of all, you don't have to do it perfectly. It is perfectly fine in any relationship to do it badly and then come back. This is the long game. This is not the short game. 1 hour walk away doesn't matter. 2 days doesn't matter. A year doesn't matter. It may be hell during the time, but this is the long game. So if you didn't lead with love, 5 years later, you can come back and say, I am so sorry. I
That's
made a
right.
mistake.
That's right.
You cannot be in a yelling match if you're not yelling.
Yeah.
There is no match if you're not yelling. So if you're yelling, you're feeding the fire, and it's okay. It's understandable. I mean, everyone here on this call is here to say, I've been there, I've done that. It's not great, but you can come back 30 minutes later, a day later, you can reflect, you can find your courage, you can find your tribe, you can do your own self-care, you can wrap yourself up in your weighted blanket and get your own nervous system regulated to find the grace, the strength, the courage. You can practice saying sorry. Maybe sorry wasn't part of your family's repertoire. Maybe you didn't learn how to do that. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You can get help for yourself. Everything you do on your side of the fence is going to pay dividends. The stuff you do on the other side of the fence, which means your child, trying to get them to say sorry, trying to get them to do whatever, trying to is a harder dynamic. That's where we get into like codependent behavior, enabling. There's clinical language, I could get to it, but the good news is you can work on it on your side of the fence. If someone is screaming their head off at you and you're like, and you just say, hey, what happened to you, honey? They'll be like, what? No, I'm screaming at you. You're supposed to scream back at me. And I'm going to get my adrenaline hit that way because I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight. And then I don't have to think about the messed up thing I did with my friends 3 hours ago, or like how crappy I feel inside, or how I want to die, or whatever. Like
Yes,
you're
that
like,
part.
what? So it's almost like martial arts, right? It's like just taking the energy out of that by not engaging force with force. That's the first kind of dynamic of that thing. But the next step, what I wanted to illuminate for you is, how do you find the right language, right? How do you decode what's being said? So the question isn't what's wrong with you. The question is, what happened to you? Right? It's not, because, right, when you say, what is wrong with you? We have given you everything. This is so perfect. Like, why are you blowing everything up? And you're lying to me, and you won't talk to me, and you left for 2 days. You know how scared I was? Like, right, all this stuff, which
Yep,
you may
verbatim,
be
pretty much.
saying, right, out of anxiety or fear or love even, right? But underneath it, the meta message that your child may be taking in is, you are broken. You are damaged. What you are a failure.
That's
Not
right.
the intention, not the intention, but
Right.
that language comes out in the intensity of the anger, in the
Yes.
intensity of the words, right? It's not the words themselves, it's the vibration.
Yes.
So that's why the question is, like, if your child, this is the hardest thing. People are like, they rebel about what I'm about to say. So just be prepared. I'm warning you. Your child is so messed up. They've been tripping on acid or whatever, and they walked out for 2 days and haven't showered, and you see this and you're like, oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
The first question, once they're like coherent, right, is, so what did you like about that? What was good about that?
Mm.
That's what people rebel against. They're like, I can tell you right now, I don't have to ask that question because nothing was good about that. That was a experiment in destruction. That was a destructive thing, nothing good. But if you can tolerate the anxiety that gives you, to say, what did you like about that? First of all, they're going to be shocked because they're going to be like, especially in our society, if they already know, say no to drugs, like, respect your parents. If they grew up in the church and they know the 10 Commandments, they already know themselves in their own internal compass that what they've done is quote unquote bad. They're expecting you to reflect back their badness. And instead you're saying, hey, you know what? And here we are back to the number one thing I said. Our human system is wise. It is loyal. It is aimed towards our highest potential. So the question is, what did your system need? Like what was helpful for you about that? And they're like, nothing's helpful. It's bad. I lied. They give you the line, and you say, no, seriously, I know your body wouldn't do that. You wouldn't do that unless it needed something. And they might get a little curious. And then I'm going to give you the professional language, but you can just adopt it. Like, look, hey, you left. You said, hey, I've had too much. I'm overwhelmed. So your body was saying, I'm overwhelmed. You set a boundary. Boundaries are healthy. Boundaries are great. Learning how to set limits is great. So you set a limit and you did it this way. And then you got high for 48 hours, and, maybe that was like, I need to step away from something, or I just need, I guess the other question is, what did you like about that? When you're high, what's good about that? And I can tell you this as a trauma expert, when I ask people, and my subspecialty is working with addiction, when I ask people, what do you like about whatever the drug of choice is? Usually it directly relates to some trauma that their system's holding. Well, when I'm high, I feel powerful. When I'm high, I feel in control. The world works around me. When I'm high, I feel like I'm going to be okay. I can say and do the right things, right? I don't feel this anxiety of being rejected, abandoned, left out, right? Like the answer to what drives behaviors that on the outside, when we look logically, can seem destructive, when we really get at, because think about it. I mean, you as a parent are like, oh my gosh, you're throwing away the way that I've set you up with love and care and everything, every material thing, every opportunity, every training, every exposure to networks and people and success. I have given you all that and you're throwing it away. Well, there must be something really rewarding about what they're throwing it away for. And I promise you, there is. And it comes out of something deep in their system that they probably can't put words to if you confront them like on a logical level. If you start to ask, what are the behaviors? What are the sensations? What is the hit you're getting off of the compulsive behavior? You're going to start to uncover the invisible code underneath there. So is the invisible code, I'm worthless? So if what they tell you is, I feel so valuable, I feel like the king of the hill, when I'm high, everything's going to work out. You can promise that what their beautiful system is combating is something under that telling them they're nothing. They're worthless. They're invaluable. And you know what? We talked about this one time when I talked more specifically about implicit memory. I talked about multi-generational trauma, racism, invisible parts of our society, these things that happen to us before we're 3. They live in our body, in our implicit memory. And trust me, I know all about this. I have studied extensively in utero development, prenatal development, pre-conscious memory, because it's very, very much a factor for adopted people. Data that tells us, like, we see explicitly, oh, I was adopted by this, upper middle class family who gave me all these opportunities. Life was very peaceful, simple, privileged, even in terms of love and attention. Logically, I should be totally fine. And yet when I was a teenager, I felt suicidal sometimes. It was illogical. I had no idea. If someone said, "Why do you feel that way?" I'd be like, I look around and I'd say, "Well, I must be just broken. I'm damaged goods. I'm not worth it." I don't know logically. And I'm here to say there is no such thing. There's no such thing as damaged goods. Our bodies are doing stuff all the time without our permission to take care of us, to make us whole, you know? And if we've taken in data that's been passed down through the generations about our value, about how to stay alive, about how to cope, how to be safe, we may have no words for that, but it doesn't mean it's not alive and well in our system nonetheless. And when we start to illuminate the codes, then we can directly intervene. So going on the example, if the code underneath the child who walked away for 2 days and got high and dropped everything was "I'm worthless," because we live in a society that devalues Black people and Black men and Black teens, right? You walk down the street in a hoodie. I'm wearing a hoodie today because they're comfortable and because I'm at a swim meet and that's what we do, you know? We're here in sweats doing our thing. And if I put that hoodie over my head and then they see my like wrinkly ass, you know, kind of olive skinned person, old lady walking by, no one cares at all. But if I was a 6'3" Black man with the same exact swim hoodie on, it would be like, "Oh, there's a thug walking down the street that's going to hurt me." Well, guess what? That super negative projection onto me on the regular tells a message. And that message has an impact on the way that our unconscious is coded. And so if I want to get a break and I want to feel like I'm a beautiful king for 2 days, why wouldn't I feel that? It's my body trying to get me what I need to put one foot in front of the other, right? That's what our bodies do.
And you want to get away from the stress and the constant nagging and the so it's
And
natural.
you're trying to be an
like
adult,
I so see
right?
it now.
And then you're trying to be an adult, so you don't want, you know, and if your parent with all the love is trying to micromanage and control because they're so scared too, then like it's like the perfect storm of a real break. But a break is temporary. It's not forever. And if you're in it for the long game, you can always say you're sorry. You can keep growing and learning. And the thing in the moment is to speak to that, is to say, what do you like out of it? You hear them saying, "I feel like everything's going to work out." You just ask the opposite. Like you're like, shoot. So now you feel like things don't work out. You know, you feel hopeless. You feel powerless. So let me talk to that. And so instead of the power struggle you were about to have because you took your pause, you worked on your side of the fence, you asked the questions that they could never answer logically, but you get at them unconsciously. And then you can start to feed your sweet baby child who's now grown up into this adult person who's bigger than you, who screams and does illegal things. You can say, you can cry with them. You can be sad about the tragedy that message, that very wrong message, is alive and well in their body. And you can start to give it the other message that you want to give. You know how I said the right language gets the right results? So the whole message for that example is you are a person of value, not in words, because it doesn't work. It's like telling an anorexic person, you are underweight. You could die. I can show you the stats. I can show you the science. I can show you the research. And there is no anorexic person who's like, "Oh, you're right. I'm going to eat my cheeseburger now." No, it doesn't work that way because it's in their deep unconscious. So it's sensations that give that. What is that? What is that for my snowflake, for my son, for my daughter? What is going to make them feel valuable that isn't this very destructive thing? And this is the grounding. And this is the same for ourselves. Like, so maybe it's music. Maybe it's identifying the top 10 playlists of the songs that tell me that who I am matters. That's a visceral and sensory input. And that's what's playing all the time in my house. And we know it, and I know it, and we're working on you tapping into your value. Maybe it's the sensation is sight, smell, sound, right? Energy. It's how do you take those inputs? Maybe it's nature. What lends you to a place and a space that told you. Oh, shoot. Look, it's 9:57. All right, Kelli. I
But see,
promise
this is,
people
I
that.
love all of this. And you're giving such incredible words of wisdom, because I think everybody on this phone call, and people are saying absolutely true, light bulb moment. Because, it's like, gosh, how do we get this training and this way of being, before our children, and start these situations? Because the way you articulated earlier, how to respond, how to communicate, what to
Yep,
say, and you talked a lot about rewiring, and the codes, and how do you do that? It's so powerful. So I could listen to you for another hour, and would love
I
to,
know. And I
gosh,
love to talk.
well, which is
Yes,
awesome. I'd love to have you come back. And maybe what we could do next time, Dr. Julie, is have some of our callers and listeners share, current real life situations, and you can give some coaching on how to respond. Because I will
totally.
say,
Yep,
after, gosh, 3 years almost 4 years of these calls, I've learned tremendous amounts of how to change my behaviors with the boys, and the big apology. And I did that in January. It's major,
yep,
Kyle. And our relationship significantly better than where it was. And still have our moments, but I say we still have our moments. How I choose to respond is completely different. It's my choice
totally. And
how I respond.
that's your power, girl. That's your
Yes,
power.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
Resilient Brain Project. Maybe in the follow-up we can share about that. That's a
I
free
would
online
love
resource.
that.
This is not invisible. It seems magical. People are like, how'd you do that? It's not magical, but once you,
Yeah.
it's scientific. Once you illuminate, everyone can be more empowered. And I want to make
The
that happen.
Resilient Brain Project, is that something we can do? Like, is it like an ongoing course? Is it something we could do here over
No, that's just
time? Is it?
that's an online repository. A lot of experiential exercises, 12 different areas of mental health, and a whole bunch of learning, but not a course. I'm working on a course. I'm working on a book. I got a lot of stuff going on.
We all are working on all these things. Well, there's a woman that said, yes, I need help to help my son who is overwhelmed. And I think it's all of us. There's a young lady that somebody put me in touch with, at the high school my sons went to high school, really struggling. So I sent her daily prayers and try to just keep her lifted in a way that is not coming from her parent, you know.
Yeah,
And I'm wondering if there are things like that we can do to help other young people. But anyway, it's 10 o'clock. It flew by. Gosh, I love everything you said. Really, I want to can you capture, like, if you were to sum up in a few words, the key lessons? I know we talked about mental health revolution. We talked about traditional talk therapy not working. And you have 3 core tenets. Can you just summarize again, or give
yep.
us
Our
key
human
takeaways?
systems wise, and loyal. There are invisible factors that influence our systems and behaviors, and we can change those with the right language, which gives you the right results. So slowing it down, listening for the invisible stuff, which is a skill, and then a world of options opens up for you in terms of how to change those codes.
Love that. The right language, slowing down, listening differently, and it's really communicating differently, right?
Totally. That's right.
Thank you for being here. I love it when you're
Thank
here. I'd love
you,
to have you back.
Kelli.
And
Thank
thank
you
you for
so much.
being here,
Glad to be
even when
here.
you're at a swim meet, sitting in your
Of
car.
course,
Appreciate
all
you
the
so
time.
much. So good today. So thank you, Dr. Julie. And Tiara is going to close us out with a prayer, and I will reach out to you, and I would love to have you back again before the end of the year so we can
Of
continue
course.
this conversation. Thank you.
I'd love that.
But dear God, we thank you for another Sunrise Sunday. We thank you for Kelli and family for providing this platform. We thank you, God, for Dr. Julie, for all of the knowledge and tips and tools that she has provided for us today. We pray that you bless her and her family, God. We pray that you give each of us to identify and connect with our children in a more deep and meaningful way, Lord. We thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We pray your peace, your blessing, your grace, your love, your protection over each and every person on this call this week. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Tiara. Everybody have an incredible week, incredible day. we can practice some of what Dr. Julie shared with us today, slowing down, changing our response, maybe even apologizing, and having that human connection. So thank you. Appreciate you. I'm going to work on that today. And we will see you before the end of the year. So I'll follow up separately. Have a great week, everyone. Take care.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.